Hello and welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious. And today we're talking about a very strong weekend at the box office. We've got 4 movies crossing $25 million threshold at the movie theaters, which is rare to see this time of year. We are in August, which usually are the dog days of summer. But today to talk to me about all that is happening at the box office is Angelina. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys? I'm in Colorado right now. It's actually beautiful. It was crazy hot driving here, but it's good.
Yeah, it's nice. Hey, where I am, it's nice and warm out. The sun is out.
Yeah.
It stopped raining a couple of days ago, so I'm glad that it's August, but it's hot, but it's not super hot. Like
Yeah.
it's bearable heat. I think we had a heat
Arizona
wave.
was unbearable, but that's okay. Yeah, that was unbearable. I was
Well, now,
literally in my car,
yeah,
full AC on. Like, oh God.
but like you're in Colorado now, so I'm sure the
Oh, it's
elevation
beautiful
helped
here. Yes,
cool things off a little bit. Yeah.
absolutely.
So I wanted to kind of start off by talking about, well, what is continuing to be an absolute phenomenon in Barbenheimer. That's just
Barbenheimer.
it's still steamrolling the box office.
Yeah.
Barbie is basically gonna have made $1 billion worldwide by the end of this weekend. It's already about to cross 500 million domestic, so it's got a very even mix of international and domestic in North America. And then we have Oppenheimer, which is quickly trending towards becoming the highest grossing biopic movie ever. It's already like getting close to like a $500 million itself.
Yeah, it was like 550 million.
Yeah, it's insane. But like even the new movies that have come out this week, like with the Meg 2 and TMNT Mutant Mayhem, both of those movies are going to be crossing the $25 million mark in their opening weekends. And then the Meg 2 worldwide box office is at like 120 something. And then you've got TMNT Mutant Mayhem, which has got a 96% Rotten Tomato score. So that's amazing for a franchise that has had its ups and downs over the years. And it's set to be like the second highest grosser of the weekend, right behind Barbie. Barbie is going to be coming in around 50 some odd million dollars. And then TMNT Mutant Mayhem is like somewhere in the 30s. So like, is this impressive to you? Like the fact that we are in August now and there's so many movies making money at the box office.
I think it's also such a wonderful trend. I think so many people are finally going back to the movie theater more regularly. I've like talked to friends who have AMC passes now, and like people are getting back into the movie theater and slowly getting away from like, I want to watch everything from home, which I think is a trend that's going to keep going, right? It's just COVID was a massive hit to everyone, but now everyone's getting back into the swing of like going to the movie theaters. And then you have movie theaters that are actually trying to make it more, I mean, in general, like with AMC Pass, I feel like Regal might have something kind of similar as far as discounts and stuff go for members. Like they're trying to make it more accessible to the masses, but then also we've got some crazy good movies. Oppenheimer, when I think back to it, I think it was like one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. I think it is Christopher Nolan's like one of his best films. I honestly think it's going to win so many awards, and I feel like everyone I'm talking to feels the same, and that kind of talk along with Barbie just keeps going, right? And so that's the thing, is like I have talked to so many people who are like, I have yet to go see Barbie. I am going to the theater to see it. And it came out at this point, like 2.5, 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks? 2 weeks.
It's been like 3. This is this third weekend.
Okay.
And I went to see it a second time this week, and the theater was packed, and it wasn't even a Friday. So,
I know a lot of people that are going to see the movie twice. I know a lot of people that are going to see the movies with different groups of people. And it really has become sort of like this massive experience versus just going to the movies. What is so hilarious is I was telling you earlier, I'm in Telluride this weekend for a wedding, and there is one movie theater here. One movie theater in this little town. It has one physical theater within the movie theater, and it is only playing Barbie twice a day. That is it. That's all this town is seeing. And the closest movie theater is literally, when I was looking, I think it was in Flagstaff. So
wow. Yeah, that's a ways. That's a good drive away. Yeah, that's like I used to work. I did like I was a part-time IMAX projectionist for a couple of months a
Oh.
few years ago at like a aquarium in Connecticut where they had this old 70 millimeter IMAX projector. So like when like a traditional
Yeah.
IMAX screen and everything. And the platters are huge. Like you have like real IMAX 70 millimeter film. And at the time they had an exclusive deal with Disney to play Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And that's the only real movie. Like they would play like the aquarium stuff that's like 15-minute movies. But the only real movie that they played
over and
was
over and over and over again.
Yeah, over and over. It was
so funny.
Quite, but like
even
that
like
movie,
the town coffee shop here is still like dressed up for Barbie. Like they like it was like a town thing, and I feel like so many small towns across the country really invested in Barbie, and then you see the Barbie marketing everywhere because everybody was pairing with Barbie. And so with that sort of subliminal messaging, it's just going to keep going. I think Barbie might actually just like break box office records if it hasn't already.
It's already the second highest grossing movie of the year. It's gotten there at record pace. It's trending ahead of Super Mario because Super Mario 3 weeks in wasn't this far ahead in its box office. And I'll be just from my experience alone, I don't usually go see a lot of movies twice in the box office because A, I don't have a lot of time. B, it's also one of those things where I'm like, maybe I should spend that time watching a movie I haven't seen, like because I can wait to watch it on digital. But watching Barbie a second time was as enjoyable, if not more enjoyable, than the first.
Did you go back and see it a second time? I feel like I need to in order to fully understand all of like the jokes, because obviously visually there's a lot going on, and character-wise, like there are a lot of jokes and a lot of stuff that get thrown back and forth, and obviously you catch the really like flagrant ones, but some of them I was like, wait, what? And I feel like if I go back and see it one more time, it'll all really sink in.
There's a couple of nuanced elements that I caught this time around that I completely missed the first time. And then there's a few things that I was like, you watch it once and you remember it a certain way, but then you watch it again, you're like, oh, and then, you kind of, so you experience it. And then there's the first time around going to watch the movie and then I need to talk about it on the weekend on the podcast. Like your mindset is like, okay, I got to make sure I absorb everything, get all my notes, and you sort of like mental note taking. But the second time around, I'm just there to enjoy the movie, and it's even more enjoyable because you're just taking it in as just a viewer, and it's a hilarious movie. That's also the best way I will describe it. I don't know if you ever watched Lazy Town when you were like younger, but like if you ever find something like it's basically like a kid's show where you have like it's a live action show that's like this fictional cartoonish town, and there's people. It's basically for like young children, but or like if you watch one of the Grinch movies, for example, it's kind of like that. Where especially the newer Grinch one, the animated one, it's sort of like that, but for adults in live action, where nobody's taking themselves seriously. It's this over the top play sort of an environment. Like I'm Just Ken song hit me so much harder.
I'm Just Ken. Yeah, it's like a joke now. Like it's becoming a cultural trend talking about Barbie. It has made its way into all of the jokes, and now that song is going to be stuck in my head for the rest of the day. Thank you so much for that, Dan. I appreciate that. Also, Ryan Gosling killed it. I think he actually sang all of it, right?
He's done his own singing. He was in La La Land, right? Like he did.
Not only La La Land. He grew up doing musical theater, but I just wasn't sure like if this was actually fully him on the album or not.
I'm pretty sure that was him. Yeah.
Hilarious.
In fact, I saw a story, I think it was either on Variety or Deadline, where I saw that for Greta Gerwig's birthday recently, he surprised her with like a flash mob of Barbies and Kens, I think, performing probably a song from the movie.
Kind of genius. It also, I love the camaraderie of everyone on that movie. Everyone loves everyone else so much. And we've heard Greta Gerwig talk about it. We've heard Ryan Gosling talk about it. We've heard Margot Robbie talk about it. We've heard America Ferrera talk about it. Everyone was like, that movie was everything. The making of that movie was everything. And I just feel like there's not a lot of movies that you can walk away from
and as I'm like an actor, like just think about this, right? Have you seen some of the behind the scenes footage on this? Because like a lot of the sets, all the Barbie Land stuff, like they built those sets physically. So you're
Yeah.
physically in the space. There's not a lot of CGI. It's kind of like working on a Wes Anderson movie, right? Like where you have all the miniatures and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's like acting on a play. So you, as an actor, get a full experience of like, you don't have to use your imagination. Everything is there for you. So you can just worry about bouncing off the other actors in the scene with you. And I think that's what this movie also had. There's a lot of like old school movie techniques that they're using in this, whether it's practical VFX or like the way the set elements fly in and fly out. And then, you know, Will, like even the like Will Ferrell's character, and then just the metaphors, and the nuances of everything in this movie hit me, even like, or like when
Yeah.
they're having this Scooby-Doo like chase through Mattel's
Well, also
headquarters.
it's so funny too because it's been 3 weeks and now we're still talking about Barbie, and you
Right.
know that is like a
Like,
huge deal.
like it's making over $50 million of the domestic box office at this third weekend, and there's been like a
And
dozen
there have been
other
2 or 3 movies that have come out since.
yeah, not just that, but like there's been not like a whole, like I can probably count on two hands big blockbusters or supposed big blockbusters that have come out this year that did not make $50 million in their opening weekend, or made only a little more than $50 million.
Yeah.
Barbie's doing that on its third weekend, to the point that, you know, it's not, and the thing is, it's a kind of movie that's not just doing business for itself, it's uplifting the box office as a whole. Because and it started with Oppenheimer, but I feel like even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Meg has sort of benefited because people are at the movie theaters, they're like having fun,
Also,
they're like, this is a great
I
movie.
saw something
Yeah.
that said that Barbie is actually helping the overall economy and helping fight the recession, which I thought was so crazy. Like I don't know what article. I wish I would have saved it. It was so nuts to read, but they were talking about how truly like the phenomenon of Barbie is helping America stay out of like a deep recession, and is really helping stimulate the economy, which is insane to think that a movie can have this much power. But Margot Robbie called it, right? She did.
Yeah.
So
when she pitched it to the movie studio, she was
this
like,
will be $1 billion
movie. But she was like, I wasn't really sure, and like all of us, well, here we are. You know, it's basically there. It's crazy because this movie is not just, it's one of those things where you go and watch this movie and you can enjoy it on many levels. It's like everything that is good about life kind of a movie, but at the same time, it could be mindless fun kind of a movie. It's a great movie for the entire family to watch. It's a great movie if you just want to have a laugh for yourself. If you're feeling down, like, and you want to go watch a movie, Barbie is a great movie to go check out. And then because it's summertime, a lot of people, I bet you are probably going to watch other movies while they're there, or they're like, this reinvigorated my love for the movies, and now I'm going to come to the movie theater more often. Yeah. And as a result of that, they're seeing other movies too. Like I was reading on Deadline that this weekend is going to be only the fourth time in box office history that 4 movies will be making more than $25 million at the box office. And I think the last time was in 2018, which if I remember, so on the article it mentioned the last time this happened was in like Thanksgiving 2018. And you know, Thanksgiving time, Christmas time, those are big time for movies.
Pre-COVID.
So this is just an average weekend in August doing some all-time level business. $178 million at the box office, and then the weekend that Barbie came out with Oppenheimer was like 200 million, and then last week was almost 200. So yeah, you're right. Like the effect is there because like it's not it's
literally
just lift,
helping.
You know?
Yeah.
That,
well, then all of the collaborations with Barbie, everyone like is like shopping the Barbie trends and doing this, and it's crazy.
Yeah, the color pink is back in style.
I feel like I need to go buy more pink now. Like I feel like that needs to become a part of my closet.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was not previously. So you actually went to go see 2 of the new movies that came out this week. So you went to go see the new Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Yeah, it's a long title.
There we go. And then you also went to go see Meg 2. I literally could not go see the movie this week because I drove to Colorado and the only movie theater that had Meg 2 was in Flagstaff. And I was so dead after driving for 10 hours, I couldn't see it. So I did some reading, but what did you think before we get into the reviews and everything about it?
So the Meg 2 is the most mindless, fun movie that you could probably watch in theaters today, where I was at the, like literally I'm watching there, and then every time like the next ridiculous thing happens, I was kind of like, okay, like this,
Hmm.
like that was me the whole time, like, okay, cool, like it's like I know it's crazy ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense. There's no like the science of some of the things they explain makes no sense, or like it looks like lazy writing, or there's some really bad cheesy dialogue, but you're just like, you know what? I don't care because this just looks like it's fun. And clearly, like
Oh my
in the
God.
movie, they weren't taking like some of their stuff seriously. And there's moments like the bad guys are as one dimensional as any bad guy in a Mortal Kombat movie from the 90s. That there's this one moment, like, okay, spoiler alert, where like one of the bad people in the movie, she's like, oh yeah, this glass is thick, and like Jason Statham's character is like all worried about it, and she turns around and like, oh, we should for our office, like I was thinking we should like, and she's talking about some interior, like she gets into something really frivolous, and then one line later and there's a shark that just busts through and eats her, and it's just. And I was like, that moment, I'm like, yes, because of course that will happen. And I am all for that. And yes, you do deserve to be in, and that's funny. And I do not care if it's ridiculous. It's that, and that was the whole movie. That was literally the whole. Yeah.
Okay, that is what I am reading, because you guys, the Rotten Tomato critics, the critics' comments on this movie are freaking hilarious. I actually kind of want to read the top one because it's so dead. This franchise needs to be buried at the bottom of the Atlantic for a couple of decades, along with some illegally dumped nuclear waste. Perhaps then it might finally mutate into something entertaining. She is from The Observer in UK. Her name is Wendy. Wendy-eyed.
Yep.
Hilarious. That is basically mirroring all of the critics about what they're saying about this movie. They're saying it's so bad, it's bad. Like it's so bad that there's just like there's no saving graces. But so critics' choice score right now is 29%, which I actually don't even know.
I think that's a valid number, although I feel like that might be a little too high because I feel like there's been better movies that have had worse scores in the past.
Hilarious. So the only other movie in theaters that's doing that poorly is Mobland, and I don't even know what that movie is.
I've never heard of that one.
Me either.
Like Jason Statham is in this movie as like he's got it's one of the most stiff performances from Jason Statham I've seen. But like he's got a natural charisma to him. There's some of the action stuff that he does, he's good at, right? But anytime he's not in an action sequence, he looks very stiff, clearly out of place, and clearly they have him in this movie because he's a star. He draws an audience. People like seeing him in action movies, but you could tell like he's a limited performer in the sense that he's not the best actor.
He's not. He's not an actor first. He's not like a guy first.
He's not what you would call it. Yeah, he's not like a thespian or somebody who you would like call to do a stage play.
He's not a thespian.
So and there's definitely moments in this movie where I'm like, yeah, you know what, like. Yeah, it's Jason Statham. What else can I ask for? Like, okay, I'll just take it as I. And the other. I
feel like everybody is saying that about this movie. You just got to take for what it is because that's really awful, and you got to just lean into how cringy bad it is. And I'm like,
but like that's the best attitude to go towards this movie and go in. You should not have any expectations. If anything, you should expect something terrible because then you'll just have a better time with the movie.
Did it at least make you laugh?
Like, there was definitely some ridiculous moments. There are some fun, there are some cool moments in the movie. Yeah. I will give it that. But there are some very ridiculous moments. There's a couple of horror moments in the early part where they're in the trench and where you actually start like I feel like that's probably the best directed part of the movie. But then there's things like where Jason Statham at some point in like what I assume they were referring to as a trench could be like something like the Mariana Trench, which is so deep that the only way humans could survive down there is if they're in these pressurized vessels. And okay, so they have these super suits that they developed, which help them survive. But at one point, he just goes out into the water and he's like, oh yeah, as long as I clear my sinuses and let the water into my sinuses, the pressure will even out and the water won't crush me. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. The pressure will crush you like a grape because you may have filled your sinuses with water, but you did not fill your blood vessels or anything else in your body. Like you would be crushed in an instant. That's why we saw that it was in the news a few weeks ago with that sub that was going down to the Titanic,
Yeah.
the trench would be even farther down. Then the pressure is even higher. It made absolutely no sense. But in the moment, I'm like, okay, they at least tried to give it an explanation. Whatever. It's not that kind of movie. Let's just keep watching. So that was kind of my
There's no
attitude
science
throughout
here.
the movie.
Keep going.
Yeah, like I was like, okay, you know what? They tried. At least they did not just say like, oh yeah, it's totally fine. Like people, they tried to give an explanation. I'm like, all right, cool. A for effort, and we'll just keep moving along.
So
but then
audience score is a little bit higher. It's 74%. So people are liking the movie. Like people that are going to see it are kind of, I think, walking into it with that sort of mindset of like, it's gonna be the worst freaking movie.
Exactly. I think this is a great example. It's a great example of a movie where people are going in with the right set of expectations. I mean, at least most of them. Like 74%
I feel like that is so important nowadays, because I feel like I walked into Renfield expecting it to be awful, and it was actually pleasantly kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you give a movie like that absolutely no expectations, that is when you can be surprised, or it fits in exactly with what you thought it was going to be, and that's fine too. Like The Witcher. When I watched The Witcher, I anticipated being awful, and then I built like a fondness for it. I'll be honest. The new season just I'm like,
if you go in expecting the greatest thing ever, then I think most of the time you'll end up being disappointed. But if you go in with a movie like this, you just gotta go in expecting like very little in terms of a good movie. You're going to watch a bad movie, and you're just gonna have fun with it. And then this movie delivers on all the things that I think. There's plenty of sharks. There's a few other like Jurassic sort of animals in this movie that almost at some point this movie starts feeling like a Jurassic Park movie.
Okay, it kind of gives that, right? Because the megalodon is like supposed to be some massive dinosaur.
And the other thing was this movie, like when I walked in, I was like, okay, I saw a couple of Chinese company logos in the beginning of the movie, so I was like, okay, so it is Chinese finance, like that makes sense. Like there's a lot of movies today that are like so it's nothing new. Like even Independence Day Resurgence was like half Chinese finance, and you could tell when you see that there's a big influence in the movie itself. So almost half of this movie, not almost half, but let's say maybe like 30-40% of this movie was like in and around like the in the South China Sea, I think, or like in that part of the world. Also, like people just speaking in Chinese and you're reading English subtitles. Half of this cast, the feature cast in the movie, or like basically half the main cast was like Chinese, and so you have a lot of like, they clearly are aiming to make this a big hit with Chinese audiences, which I'm completely fine with.
How is it doing? Has it already released in China?
I'm not sure if it is, but even if it hasn't, it probably will.
Yeah, it will probably do really well over there.
And the fact that it's making like up to close to like 150 million on its global box office debut, while only making like 30 of that in domestic North American box office, that clearly means that there's plenty of legs. There's plenty of audiences out there. The first Meg started off with a similar number, and then eventually finished at like 500 some odd million.
So where are we at in the box office right now? I don't think I saw any reports about that yet.
So it's currently set to make somewhere in like the high 20s, if I'm correct. So it's not the final numbers don't come out usually till Monday, but it's looking at like high 20s, maybe around 30 million, and worldwide it's coming out to like upwards of 120, which is a pretty solid number for like a movie like this. And again, it's one of those things where people will go watch it. They won't expect it to be a fantastic movie. I mean, but like you'll get the sharks, you'll get Jason Statham like beating up sharks.
And also after getting so many politically charged movies, right? Like Oppenheimer is so heavy. Barbie, fairly politically charged. There are like a lot of there's a lot of conversation to be had about the movie. This feels like a really dumb breath of fresh air.
It just exactly. It's just there to give you like a bunch of fun shark action. People getting eaten by sharks, killing sharks. That's all there is. Sharks. There's nothing.
Sharks.
There's no bigger purpose to this movie existing other than just for you to go watch it, have some dumb fun at the movie theaters, and then that's it. That's really it.
I mean, it's like almost as cringy as Jaws was. Like the OG Jaws is cringy. Like when you watch it back,
definitely
it's like,
moments, because it's got it's got this like crazy psychosis effect to it, where like once you get into the movie, you're in it. But like if you recount your experience after the fact, you're like,
What the?
but like like the suspension of disbelief doesn't quite
Yeah,
hold up in hindsight. So yeah, I definitely
totally.
agree with you on that.
Well, I mean, people are going to keep going and seeing it. You guys let us know if you do go see it, what you think about it. Remember to like, share, subscribe, do all those things. But we also, not we, I put it in the wrong direction. He went to go see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. How did you feel about the movie? How does it compare to Meg 2?
It's definitely the better movie. It's definitely the better. It's
Jackie Chan's in it, which is so cool.
And that was the first voice that I noticed in the movie. So I'm like, wait,
yeah.
that's Splint. Wait, that sounds like Jackie Chan. Because like I noticed that the accent. I'm like, that is. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, that is Jackie Chan. And then like the first time I saw Ice Cube's character, like Superfly, I'm like, that is Ice Cube. Like that, I had no idea he was in the movie.
Seth Rogen is in it as well as John Cena, but they did get like actual kids to voice the turtles, which I think is cool. Yeah. Like that's a really good voiceover, and obviously Andrew can speak more to that than I can, but it's definitely it's always kind of nice when you have kids actually playing kids versus like adults playing kids, because that gets a little like sometimes.
Yeah, it gets tricky, and also you end up in a situation where it doesn't sound as authentic, because especially with this movie, like this movie was filled with references, like cultural references of all kinds, whether they're referencing like the Mark Ruffalo scene in Avengers Endgame where he's like the Hulk and he doing autographs, and we know famously that he improvised some of that scene in Avengers Endgame, and so they're referencing that all the time. They're referencing a bunch of other like movies and TV shows throughout the whole movie. There's like the pizza stuff, and they talk like real teenagers would talk. Like it feels very authentic. So like the dialogue feels like real. Like there's no, these are pretending to be kids that I just happen to be these Ninja Turtles. No, and it's a grounded movie too in terms of like what these characters want, like, and what they're not able to do because they're turtles, and like the world kind of they haven't had a good experience being around humans, and it's a really fantastic story of learning to live in to be accepted by the humans, and like earning that acceptance, and being felt like feeling like outsiders in the beginning, and then even when people don't trust you, still doing the right thing, and then through your actions earning that trust. So that there's a very heartfelt, character-based, grounded story behind it all. The only downside to this movie that I thought was, and this is very subjective, I think for a lot of people this will be no problem whatsoever, the animation style kind of bothered me, because a lot of
that's what I said. I was like, I saw the trailer and I was like, it looks weird.
Because I've seen a lot of movies do that, but like, so here's the thing. The thing that bothered me wasn't so much the drawing style. It was the issue was the frame rate. There was way too much of this movie that felt like it was 12 frames per second than I would have liked for there to be, which basically meant like I was seeing like choppy video almost, right? You're seeing like images move, which I'm like, if I wanted to go watch something that was entirely like anime, which is done like 12 frames per second to save cost, then I would go watch a Dragon Ball Z TV show episode. But like with Spider-Verse movies, for example, which basically started this whole trend, they vary the frame rate depending on like what element in this shot they want to show at 12 frames per second. The other ones are at 24, sometimes at 18, so that you're getting smooth motion in a lot of places, but you're getting choppy motion for effect in times. This movie, it felt like almost all the time was at 12 frames per second, and it was just a little jarring, because I just felt, because at that point it's hard to kind of put the motion together between the images, between each frame. So I got used to it for a little bit, but then there was definitely scenes where I just kept getting like, wait,
you just kept focusing on that rather than actually
look away, or like
the movie.
It was distracting. So I just felt like maybe they didn't get the balance right there as much as they should have. But I will say, like, compared to like the Michael Bay movies, the character designs for the turtles were very effective, because
the cartoons too,
and like the cartoon, you can individually identify each turtle very distinctly in this movie. Not only because of like the mask that they wear, each is a different color, but because they're physically don't all look like they're the same height, the same build and everything. They each have like a different sort of like body shape, slightly different height, and facial features and stuff. And then they also did a fantastic job of really bringing out the personality of each turtle and giving each of those personalities space to breathe, and giving them all mini character arcs. So you never felt like you could combine all four of them into one character. They felt like four
Yeah,
distinct
because
characters.
remembering the cartoons, and even I don't know if I saw the Michael Bay movies, I'll be honest. I remember the cartoons, like when I think back to it, they were all sort of just, they were the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like it wasn't, I don't even remember each of their names. I think one was like Michelangelo or something
Well,
like that.
there's
Like,
Michelangelo, Raphael,
yeah.
Donatello, and I'm forgetting one's name.
Yeah. So it, like exactly what
Oh,
you said,
Leonardo.
it just,
Yeah.
they all sort of conglomerate into one entity,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for me.
Yep.
So would you say that this is definitely sort of like a positive expanse on that universe? Like a
Absolutely.
positive step forward. They just really need to fix the graphics because that sounds
Yeah, I just
bad.
think the animation style could be a little
It's like
more
not it.
like movie friendly, like in
Yeah.
motion sick. It was like a weird kind of motion sickness effect. But
Yeah.
outside of that, the story, the way this plays out, and it kind of sets the stage for them to do more down the road. They're
Yeah.
definitely, I think the way the movie ends, it's sort of designed to, lead to more sequels, hopefully, if this one does well. And, they kind of leave it pretty open ended. The April O'Neil character, I think, was done a lot of justice in this movie, whereas it felt like a more one dimensional stereotype like and sexualized character with the Megan Fox playing it in the Michael Bay movies, which is a
Yeah.
Michael Bay movie. So like you expect there's like a certain thing with like how he treats certain characters, but in this movie I just felt like even the April, like her character had a whole story arc to herself. You cared about the character, her motivations, who she is at the beginning of the movie to like how where she ends up at the end, and it's kind of the biggest thing that I appreciated was it didn't feel it by the end of the movie it felt like everybody on the team as a whole had a nice development that they went through as characters, but individually they each learn new things about themselves.
Mhm.
So it was a very rewarding experience, and it's one of those things where I am excited to see if they do another movie. I will definitely go watch it because it was an easy watch. It never felt cumbersome at times. I never really felt like looking at the watch. It's a movie that flew by, and honestly, because like I looked at my time at the end of the movie, I'm like, oh, it's been like I felt like the
Yeah.
time kind of flew by. So it's a movie that I feel like if you have kids or if you're a family, you want to go see it. Go see it. You'll probably be able to see it multiple times and not have to worry about like getting bored of it, because there is a lot that happens, especially in the third act of the movie, but it's never overwhelming. And the way they wrap everything up at the end, they kind of bring it back and ground everything in characters, which is always the best thing.
Oh, I love. Okay, this is good. You never, I don't know. I personally never really walk into any sort of cartoon movie of any kind expecting a whole lot. And that leaves room for me to be pleasantly surprised sometimes. So that's, yeah, I love to hear it. Maybe I will go see that.
The next DC film is Blue Beetle. And Blue Beetle, much like a lot of movies that are coming out right now, don't have any promotion happening for them, with regard to doing actor interviews, red carpets, or going to late night shows. Late night shows are shut down because the actor strike as well as the writer strike. But the question that I want to ask you is, a movie like Blue Beetle, right? Like it's part of a franchise that has been struggling. Flash, like basically flopped. It made like $268 million on a $250 million budget and marketing, where it basically lost $100 million for the studio. And before that, Shazam 2, Shazam Fury of the Gods, lost even more money for the studio seemingly. And Black Adam was a disappointment. It's a franchise that's struggling, right? So now Blue Beetle comes out, and those movies, like they had the ability to promote them through a red carpet premiere. They could have the actors out there speaking for it in social media. All of that stuff is not there for a movie like Blue Beetle. So how do you feel? And you're in LA, and you are usually seeing a lot of these premieres around you. You're seeing the actors, promoting everything. So how much do you think not having the power of the stars of your movie being the front and center on your marketing campaign, not having that, how much does it affect a movie like Blue Beetle?
So, it's an interesting sort of thing to think about, because I don't necessarily know whether or not it's something linear that you can track, because there's no way to see who gets pulled in because they saw this press interview on social media 6 days later, and who gets pulled in because they saw the trailer, or because they love the actor, or because they are just hardcore DCU fans. I think in a way, because it's a DCU movie, it's going to be one of the first I mean, Blue Beetle, he's like one of the first Latino superheroes
Yeah.
in the DCU. So I think that has a huge sort of positive shift for them.
Impact. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm exactly. So it could help sort of fix it, but I don't know, right? There's no way to really know, but it's really hard when you're coming from. Normally, when you have a movie, you do press interviews, you do trailers, there are marketing posters, there are marketing billboards, and they all go together, right? It's all like a press release package. These actors are paid to do the press releases, they get paid to do the press tours for these movies. And so when something like this happens and you have to remove the whole press part of it, I can only imagine that it will affect the movie. But with that being said, I did feel like they started releasing the trailer for this movie pretty early on. I remember seeing the first trailer for this movie months ago.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, even though obviously they couldn't have anticipated the strike in that time, I do think because they've been doing so much marketing and because it is a new superhero that's being introduced, it could possibly save it. Also, it looks like a good movie, which also helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the trailers have been good, and not every good trailer leads to a good movie. Like that's not always the case. We have seen plenty of examples where bad trailers turn, for good movies and good trailers for bad movies. But the thing about, I think, where I look at the situation and where I have come to a conclusion on all this is movies today, while the actors and the writers are striking, they all have to really just rely on their ability to entertain an audience to really sell themselves. Because there's only so much the studio can do, whether, some of these movies, they've done promotional work that was done months ago before the strikes, and that's just coming out now in outlets that got exclusive interviews and stuff, which they were waiting to put out there until today. So there will be content like that, but like as far as like actively beating the drum for movies, like there's a hashtag where Blue Beetle Battalion is on the social media, where Zack Snyder said posted that, hey, I'm going to be taking my family to Blue Beetle, movies like this deserve our support. So and he's not part of the WGA, so or the SAG, so he can do that, and he's not involved with this project, so he's not promoting it to like promote a movie. But there's when people like that, high profile personalities, especially people who've been involved in the franchise, do that, that does cultivate the fan base to kind of get behind it, and I hope that helps. But ultimately, whether it's Blue Beetle, whether it's like Gran Turismo coming out next week, whether it's any of these movies, or even like a movie like TMNT Mutant Mayhem, these movies now really have to, even the Meg, like they have to draw for themselves. There's not as much marketing there to save them, and I think it's also a test of how much does star power really matter today in Hollywood, right? Like, will that actor promotion actually drive up the box office in a meaningful way?
But it does, right? And there's no, I'm not sure there's a way to actually track how much it does. But when you think about Barbie, a lot of people got excited about Barbie based off of that one Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling press tour interview that they did that went viral on social media. That is, people, you cannot take that for granted. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot take social media for granted. And sure, I guess they could try to pay people to run ads like with the trailer, but will it be the same as sitting down and like watching these actors and getting to know these actors and have them talk about the movie? No, it won't. So it is hard, and I think a lot of the movies that are slated for this year are going to suffer. We were looking at it earlier. It looks like Sony's moved its whole slate to next year because they don't even want to risk it.
Right.
And I feel like that's a good move, and honestly, because there's been so many good movies that have come out this year that it's like, do you really want to risk trying to run competition with that?
There's a lot of, and there's a lot of money invested in those movies. Like, I'll give, like, the Craven is one of those movies. It's a Sony Marvel movie. It's a movie that I think it has a lot in common with Blue Beetle in the sense that it's part of a franchise that has its up and downs. Like, Morbius was terrible. Like, people like Venom, but like critics don't like Venom. And like, they've had their hits, they've had their misses. Like, Spider-Verse has been doing really good, but then every once in a while you get one of those movies where, like a Morbius, even Venom 2 I think was not as good as the first Venom. So like Craven, like, is a movie that I think is gonna benefit from stars being out there talking about it, Aaron Taylor
Yeah.
Johnson promoting it, Russell Crowe promoting it. Whereas with Blue Beetle, it's the same situation. You have a movie in a franchise that has been struggling of late. And I think positive buzz from the actors themselves will help, put, faces to the film's promotion, but also draw in an audience that may previously have been unaware of the movie even existing. Because it's not like Blue Beetle and Kraven have a high level of cultural awareness. They're not Iron Man or Captain America or Batman or Superman, Wonder Woman, Scarlet Witch. Like they don't have that level of, popularity. So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it would help. It definitely does have a negative effect, not having like a red carpet premiere, not having those interview clips go viral on social media. But hopefully, if the movie is good, like you said, the trailer looks fantastic. And if the Latino community comes out and supports it, because it is the first Latino superhero in the DC, or I think in general in any superhero movies.
I think it's one of the first major Latino superheroes, which is huge and awesome. But I do think that might be this movie's saving grace. Can I say that about a lot of other movies slated still? Like Warner Brothers hasn't moved any of their slate yet. They talked about moving Dune, but they haven't decided to do so. I don't know why they're not doing that. I guess because Dune has such a weird cult following. Maybe they don't need it.
It's also like there's a lot of logistics behind moving any movie's release date. They've already been promoting it, and they've gotten basically this unrivaled run in IMAX for months. Where they're not going to have that this is something the IMAX CEO himself said, that they're not going to have that runway with IMAX screens if they were to move it to next year. Like there'll be competition. So, and then there's other reasons too, I'm sure. Like, once you move a certain set of movies, you got to move a certain other set of movies, because
that also makes sense.
There's no such thing as
Barbenheimer should wind down by the time Dune comes out. And I already know people who are like super crazy excited to see Dune, you included. And but I feel like Blue Beetle and Dune might be the only movies that I have to say that about. And I think the rest of the movies will suffer massively this year because of the strikes and because they can't do press releases. Because even when you think like, oh, well, press is whatever. Like, I don't watch those. Yes, you do. They show up on your For You page on Instagram. They show up on your Snapchat ads. They show up everywhere. And it goes into a deeper subliminal messaging, sort of trying to acquaint you with the actors and the movie in order to get you to go buy that ticket and go see the movie. And that goes so much further than I think we give it credit for. So I will be super interested to see really like how it affects the numbers this year. And I don't know if we're going to be able to see that until the end of this year.
It's going to be interesting because even movies like the Marvels and Aquaman 2 that are sequels, like that the previous movies made $1 billion in both cases. Even those movies, I think they will have a chance at making money because they have the people went to watch the previous one, made money, liked it. Therefore, this one they will. But yeah, with movies like Blue, I hope that the negative effect is not too much, and then hopefully the movie's quality will speak for itself. So yeah, let us know what you guys think. Blue Beetle is coming up fast. It's a couple of weeks away at this point, so it's basically here. So we're gonna be obviously talking about it as it comes up. We'll hopefully review it, but let us know what you guys think in the comments below if you're excited about Blue Beetle and if you think the actor strike is gonna have a negative effect on the movie's release. So let's talk. So now we've been talking about, actor strike, but the writers are also striking. They're now in the 4th month of their strike. And this week,
so crazy.
The news that was out is that the WGA and the AMPTP finally had a meeting. But that meeting didn't really, result in them setting up a new negotiation. Like it just seemed like they were still very far apart on the same issues they've been far apart on from the beginning. So what is your take on where things stand right now? Because it's now 4 months in. Is there an end in sight?
Yeah, and it's so frustrating too, because it sounds by all accounts like, and obviously in this, we have to realize that like the AMPTP, they're there to make money, right? And you have to logistically figure that out. There's a lot of figureheads now in LA, like Karen Bass, the Governor Newsom. I feel like even Biden has made claims
but
about
all of those claims are like political points. They're not doing any actual work to
zero. And so it's really interesting because everybody is trying to like get their he said, she said, like their own spin on what's going on and sort of interject into this massive historical situation. as of right now, what is so hard is that the WGA has made it so obvious and has said that even if we are to settle and reach an agreement, we're going to continue to strike in solidarity with the actors. So now I feel like in a way they have stonewalled themselves.
Yeah.
Because
But can I just mention that's a clause that's already in the Teamsters contract. So it's not unprecedented what they're asking for, but it is something new that wasn't previously, on the
mentioned.
agenda.
Yeah, I feel like that wasn't mentioned previously. But my biggest thing with that is, why would the AMPTP fight to finish negotiations for the WGA when SAG still hasn't reached an agreement yet, and they're going to strike anyway? You know what I mean? Nobody's going back to work until they're both finalized.
I'm just like,
so now I feel like in a way, the WGA is stonewalled themselves, because there's no reason the AMPTP is going to rush over and try to fix it,
right?
Because nobody's going back to work. So it's a really crazy situation, and we all kind of knew it was going to get there. We all knew it was happening. Past few months, since SAG said we're striking, we all knew it's going to be a while, and we're just going to have to sit back and figure it out. AMPTP has put a terrible distaste in my mouth for the businessmen of LA. We always knew they were gross, but now they just seem nefarious. The WGA has made some really large claims about the AMPTP not giving one single crap about the people, and really trying to manipulate both parties into trying to settle for less.
I mean,
settle sooner.
Leveraging the latest play in a tired playbook, things like that. And the AMPTP is leaning on the back of hey, we just want people to get back to work. It's unfortunate that we are being framed as such. And look, to some degree, I'll give them credit where credit is due, in the sense that some of the issues, like for example, there's 3 or 4 big issues that are the cause of the strike. There's the AI issue, which we've talked about before. It's a very tricky issue. I think with the AI, it's you either have a very comprehensive set of rules that very closely define every aspect of AI as it relates to the industry, and then nothing that is not defined in there is allowed, or you kick the can down the road and say everything AI related is out of the door right now, and then we're not going to touch this issue until the next negotiations.
Until it happens.
So,
and their biggest argument is that they don't know what AI is going to look like, so they can't negotiate on it. Okay, well then protect my rights, like I'm asking, and let's talk about it at a later date. But it needs to be handled at that date.
Exactly. But the studio executives are like, it's inevitable. We don't want to wait 2 years to bring and during this strike,
we don't know what it's going to look like. Well, then how do you expect me to agree to anything if you don't know what it's going to look like? So it just really feels, again, like we talked about it last week, it feels like a lot of he said, she said. People keep kicking the can to the other side of the picket line, like, it's your fault, it's your fault. At the bottom line, it's affecting everyone, but everyone's standing in solidarity, and I really, God, the AMPTP, they are the villains here, in my personal opinion, and I need them to just get their shit together and stop being so greedy.
Yeah,
that's where we are.
The one thing I will say on the AMPTP side, though, is with the AI thing, I think AMPTP, they have a couple, both sides have some valid points. With AI, for example, I understand that it's kind of, companies like Netflix, they're hiring people for AI jobs that are 6-figure jobs while the strike's happening. I mean, it's like, this is something where,
but we don't know what that's going to look like.
It's one of those things, though, where the phrase "with great power comes great responsibility" comes to mind, and it seems like the AMPTP aren't exactly willing to take on that responsibility that comes with the power of wielding AI in creative works. So that's somewhere where I think definitely they have to either bite the bullet and make a very well-defined set of structures in the contract for how AI is going to be treated moving forward, or they'll have to just say nothing. And I just think there's at this point no in between those. The other things,
and it's
the other things that are writer specific, because the actors have other sets of demands, but the news this week was pertaining more to the writers, where they've been asking for how much time, like having more guaranteed time on shows?
So yeah, they want a minimum of a minimum hiring guarantee, because currently when you get hired onto a job as a writer and as an actor, you sometimes only get booked for that day, and sometimes a week, sometimes a month, sometimes 6 months. So there is no job security, and you have no idea how long you're going to be there. And because it is on that sort of like day-to-day basis, or a week-to-week basis, or an episode basis, you literally have no job security. You have no idea how much money you're going to be making. You have no idea if you're going to be out of a job tomorrow. And obviously, when you get a job, there's an expectation that you have that job. Obviously, there's a trial period, right? It's generally like a typically like 3 to 6 month trial period in which like you and your employer can figure it out. That doesn't exist here. You show up, you get paid. If it doesn't work, you get fired like that day in a text sometimes. Don't come back to work tomorrow. So I can definitely see that as being like a necessary job. As an actor, I don't know, like I kind of, you get hired on for a production and I guess you could be fired, but like the likelihood of that is less.
Yeah, well,
likely.
I mean, especially if they've invested in you, if they've shot stuff with you,
yeah,
now they have to redo all of that. Yeah,
and exactly. Whereas you could show up as a writer and they're just like, we really didn't like that pitch, you're fired. And I have also heard that the writers' environment, and I've heard from 2 really good friends who have been writers on multiple shows that you guys watch every day. Each of them has complained to me about how toxic their work environment is and how every day feels like a mental health crisis because of it, which is insane to me because they're both very logical, very incredible, very intelligent people. One is a stand-up comic. She's hilarious. She has told me on 2 different productions every day, it's not worth it for the money that I am making. It's not worth it for the things that they say to me. It's not worth it for what I'm doing. It is such a toxic work environment. I don't know how long I'm going to have a job. And that level of stress really does add up and mounts to a level that's almost like unbearable to a certain extent for a lot of people. So I think that's just where the writers are at right now.
It's part of it is the fact that, they're understaffed and overworked. And that's one of the things they're like, the more episodes you have on an episode order, the more writers you should have on the team. Sometimes what happens is you have writers' rooms where there's very few writers working on a large amount of episodes, or you get an extra order of episodes and all of a sudden they're like, well, just do the work.
And the showrunner gets paid a lot, and then the rest of people writers on it get paid nothing.
The other thing is like the reason why some of this doesn't jive well with the AMPTP is because if they guarantee these minimums for every show, then there are shows like what Taylor Sheridan shows, some of what he does. He may write every episode of the entire season. And so if you have an 8 episode minimum of like a certain amount of writers on that staff that the collective bargaining agreement asks for, but Taylor Sheridan's writing every episode, then the studio now is obligated to pay a certain number of writers to basically not do a lot of work, which either you ask Taylor Sheridan and say, hey, you got to now work with these people because it's required by the WGA, or you don't agree. So I think there are like certainly from the AMPTP side certain reasons why, but that's also where
But also I didn't read that the way that you read it. I think I would say I read it in a way that if a writer gets signed on to a show, they're required to be on that show for a set amount of time.
2 things. So there's one of those things is the number of writers, and then the other thing is like once they get hired, they have to be on for a certain amount of time.
So it wouldn't require them to hire. Yeah, it wouldn't require every production to hire 8 people for however long.
Well, it will be graded based on the amount of episodes the show has.
Okay.
Right.
Which makes sense too. So I don't know. Like obviously, if Taylor Sheridan's writing every episode, maybe they don't.
Exactly, and then so the issue there, but you can kind of see how like if they were to make that a rule, they will probably need to put in some exceptions to the rule for certain very specific circumstances and have them not become loopholes that can be exploited, exactly. There's a lot of tricky things. The other big thing, that I think we were talking about even before the show is viewership-based residuals, which quite simply don't work well for today's streaming world the same way that they did for traditional linear broadcast and cable television, where you have advertising revenue coming in, so therefore, you can pay out residuals based on ad revenue. You have TV ratings that you can base on your viewership data on. Nowadays, with your streaming account, they can measure up to the minute how much, or up to the second, how much you're watching, exactly what you're watching, what time of day you're watching, what genres you like to watch. So they have more data than ever. It's not. It's about transparency.
But you know what? And it does. We were talking about it earlier. It doesn't make sense to take the same residual sort of parameters that we had with cable and network TV, because they get paid through ad usage in this and that and the other. With Netflix or for Paramount, every person, no matter how much or how little they watch, is paying the same flat fee.
Exactly, like $20 for Netflix, $12 for Paramount, Hulu.
So I have weeks where I watch absolutely nothing, and then I have weeks where I binge all of Firefly Lane and The Witcher and this and that. You know what I mean? Like, there are weeks that my viewership varies so much, and there are people that pay for Netflix subscription and use it once a month. Like, there's just no way in order to properly turn the residual,
like sort of the old legacy structure.
It doesn't work. So it was a really good point that you had, but it's like, if the residuals don't work, if we can't agree to a residual sort of standard when it comes to viewership based off of this factual information, there needs to be more payment up front, like a bigger buyout, which is in order to make up for it.
And that's totally fair. And whether it's for the writers or the actors, I think that's a fair thing to ask for. But if I were to play devil's advocate with it, the AMTP might come back and say, well, then we are taking all the risk and you get the reward regardless of whether the show is successful or not. Like,
and it's
you know what I mean? Like that, so you have to build in the budgets will go higher, because you have to, no matter what happens, you have to start out with a higher floor to whatever budget you put together for a show. Because even if you cancel after one season, you're spending a certain amount of guaranteed money on it no matter what, right? Which I think there's probably, like, I'm sure there's people out there who can run the numbers and find a way to make this work. It's not impossible, because at that point, if you can agree on the fact that this has to be upfront rather than a residual based system, or if the residuals do continue to exist, they exist for like broadcast and linear TV, but for streaming, it's a different, like, that streaming could have its own structure. If they can agree on that, then I think it's all a numbers game. And there's plenty of people, very capable people involved in these negotiations who can run the numbers and make things work. At that point, it's just a matter of tweaking it until both sides have, a fair deal in place.
But honestly, I would really like to know what all of you guys think. Like, what do you think would fix this situation? It's so complex. Like, what system would work if the old residual system doesn't work? So definitely, like, let us know what you guys are thinking, where you sit, if you're involved at all in the entertainment industry, no matter where you are in the country. I talk about LA a lot, but this is affecting the whole country. It's affecting massive, huge entertainment economies across the country. It quite literally will affect the overall economy to a huge extent. So I want to know what everyone is thinking. Like, let us know what are your ideas about how this is going to go. It's hard to know, because it's like, it's such a complex situation. How do you fix it? Like, how?
Right.
So
yeah, it's difficult. Well, let us know in the comments below. Hit the like button. If you like this, and subscribe for more. We will keep talking about this in the weeks and months to come. So before we finish the show today, I just wanted to ask you about, there's 3 movies coming out next week. There were supposed to be like 4, but
what was the 4th one?
The Challengers.
Oh, the Challengers.
Yeah, all the Sony movies got moved, like the Zendaya led film.
I think it's so shocking that they, like, 2 weeks before.
I think that announcement came out a couple of months ago at this point.
Oh, did it?
Or at least
I saw
Was it a month ago? Like, I feel like that.
I literally saw the trailer when I think I went to go see Barbie.
I think you might be right, because this announcement was made in late July. So it's literally a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You're right. So like a couple of weeks ago, they were like, oh, no, never mind. Challengers is going to come in April of next year.
Sorry, guys. No.
But next week, we do have Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo's coming out next week. That's based on...
I'm actually really excited.
I am excited.
Orlando Bloom was my childhood crush. Like on a big, I was like in love with him. So any Orlando Bloom movies have a soft spot in my heart.
It wasn't a crush for me, but I really did enjoy him in the Pirates movies. And I will say that, you know, the cast for this movie looks great. I'm forgetting the name of the main lead, but like he was in the show C on Apple TV Plus with Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
So he was playing one of his adult son. So I like him from there. David Harbour's in this. Anything with David Harbour, I will go watch.
Love David Harbour.
The Gran Turismo story, like what this is based on, is real. Something happened in real life. And so it's a fantastic story, because when it was actually happening, when they decided to like take these gamers who were playing the game Gran Turismo and say, hey, we're going to do a competition and see if you can actually drive a real like Formula One car and actually race for real, like, and not just in the video game. And then, you know, from that, the person who's going to be the lead of this movie kind of emerged, and then he went on to be part of the circuit, like, which is mind-boggling to think that you can kind of go from gaming on a computer or like on a console to actually doing it for real, which is like, you know, it's a very rare thing to see somebody be able to make that leap. And it's an inspiring story. I was following that when it was happening in real life. You would see reports on ESPN, on SportsCenter, like this is happening. And it was so it was inspiring at the time. And I've been looking forward to seeing this movie since they announced it. And the trailers have impressed me, and any good racing movie is a movie that I'll go check out. So I'm excited about it. What about you?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I'm definitely going to go see it. But what are the other movies coming out this week? Because I knew about Gran Turismo, but I'm like, the rest of them, I'm like, huh?
There's also the Voyage of the last Voyage of the Demeter.
Oh, the last Voyage of Demeter, which looks freaking creepy. So I have to go see it because I love me some vampire movies.
That's like a small indie movie from the creators who have like worked their way up to this level, and it's a movie that's gonna fly under the radar. But it's gonna be different from most other movies that are gonna be in theater next weekend. So if you want to go check it out,
like OG Dracula vibes, and I read the original like Count Dracula novel. And so I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it's based on apparently it's based on a single chilling chapter from Bram Stoker's classic Dracula novel. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, if this movie does well and it's like a breakout hit, then they might be like, hey, let's adapt a few more chapters of the novel.
I know. See, it's good.
Yeah.
It was a great book. And I was also so shocked because it was so much creepier than the sort of little wives' tales you hear about Dracula.
Right.
Because in the book, he is so crazy calculated and is so like,
it's not a caricature. Like he's like Heath Ledger's Joker, where he's the smartest man in the room, even though he'll tell you he's not, you know?
Yeah. It's so creepy. So if you guys haven't read the book, like just go see the movie, but like read the book, because just the sound effects.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm excited to go see that. I might go see both.
Yeah. And while you're going to see both in theaters, there's also a third movie that's actually not going to be in theaters. It's going to be on Netflix. Have you heard about this new Gal Gadot movie called Heart of Stone?
I have not.
It's like this new action. It's sort of like a Mission Impossible-esque sort of a movie. They've got like Alia Bhatt, who's like a big Bollywood star. She plays like the villain of the movie, I think, or at least that's the way the trailers just show it.
That's kind of how Priyanka Chopra broke out on the scene, right? I remember she played the villain in
was it the second? No, that was a different one. That was Aishwarya Rai was in the second Pink Panther. But like Priyanka Chopra had
with
like
Ben Affleck, right?
Was it her? I thought she was on that. She was on an ABC show, and now she's got a show on Amazon Prime. I mean, she's had a fantastic career.
Now she's all over the place. But I remember when she was like breaking into the U.S. market. Yeah.
I definitely think this is one of those movies where Netflix is making again more of a play for an international audience, like what they did with that Ryan Gosling movie a year ago. I forgot the name of it, but the Russo brothers directed it, and Chris Evans was in it too. And that was
Drive.
No, not Drive.
No, that was.
It was. We reviewed it on the show. It was one of those. Basically, the movie was designed to start a whole franchise, and they're gonna have spinoffs and sequels now. And I think Netflix knows where its audiences are and which markets they have more growth potential in. And I think so. When I watch this movie trailer, I'm like, I can see almost the formula from the corporate office being applied to the screen in terms of the audience. It's very much like they're not trying to be subtle about it. But having said that, if the movie's got the right kind of action, it's fun to watch, and Gal Gadot's got all the charisma and charm in the world.
It's so hard for me because she's so captivating, but when I look at her, I see.
But she's not the best actress.
Yeah, I see Wonder Woman. And didn't she win like Miss Universe or something?
Yeah.
So like that's what I see. And so it's going to be kind of hard for me to like, I guess this is going to sort of set my expectations.
Well, I mean, Jamie Dornan's in it. So if you're not in it for Gal Gadot, you can go watch it for Jamie Dornan. And, he's...
Love me some Jamie Dornan.
Exactly. So
I had another huge crush on Jamie Dornan when he was on
50 Shades.
Gosh, Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time. Okay.
Once Upon a Time. No, not 50 Shades. That was.
No, I'm just saying that.
I'm moving on. Everybody.
That was his movie career. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was. That is. And then he. I still want to see it. He did a really incredible with Catriona Belfont. I think he did a.
Was it Belfast?
Belfast.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Belfast. And apparently Belfast was incredible.
One of the best movies of the year last year. It got, it deserved every Oscar nomination it got. I don't think it ended up winning as much as it probably should have. Was it last year or the year before? I feel like I might be missing.
It might have been 2 years ago.
But
I feel like it did come out kind of during COVID-ish times. So yeah, we got a lot of movies to go see.
Lots of movies to check out.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Which one are you going to go see? All of them?
I might not end up seeing the last Voyage of the Demeter, but I'll most likely see Gran Turismo, and I'll probably check out Heart of Stone on Netflix. But you know what? If I find the time, I'll go.
We're doing it.
I'm telling you, I'm probably going to end up seeing the Meg 2 again with one of my friends, and then I may end up seeing Barbie again.
Oh, no.
So I'm just going to continue to enjoy, the movies that are already out. But like Gran Turismo, I'm looking forward to, and Heart of Stone looks. Yeah. I'll give it a shot. Let's see how good it is, and if it's bad, it's bad.
Right.
But like we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, yeah, this has been another great week at the movies. It's another record-breaking box office weekend this week, and hopefully next week the trend continues. Maybe Barbie will still be number one at the box office. Who knows?
Who knows?
At this rate, we might as well guarantee it. But yeah, we'll be back
literally until the end of the year.
End of the year, probably. Well, maybe until like Dune comes out, or maybe Blue Beetle will, surprise us. Who knows?
We shall see.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you again this week, and we'll be back next week talking about more movies.